Marcus wiped the grease from his hands as he watched the sleek royal transport ship land in the scrapyard. The engines barely made a whisper as they touched down, completely different from the loud, rattling human ships he was used to fixing. Purple and gold banners hung from the ship's sides, marking it as property of the Zolonian royal house. The scrapyard owner, Grix, rushed over to Marcus with his forearms flailing in excitement. Human. The Prince Kethavar himself wants to sell us something. This could make us rich. Grix's insectoid eyes gleamed with greed as he spoke in broken standard. Marcus shrugged and picked up his toolbox. Probably another rich alien dumping broken junk on us humans. What else is new? He had been working at Grix's salvage for 3 years now, ever since he lost his job at the Earth Colonial Fleet. Humans weren't exactly welcome in most parts of the galaxy, and this scrapyard on the edge of nowhere was one of the few places that would hire them. A tall figure emerged from the royal transport, wearing flowing robes that seemed to shimmer in the afternoon light. Prince Kethavar had the typical Zolonian features: pale blue skin, long pointed ears, and eyes that looked like liquid silver. Behind him walked several guards in ceremonial armor that probably cost more than Marcus made in 10 years. Greetings. Primitive beings, the prince said in perfect standard, though his tone made it clear what he thought of them. I have a vessel to dispose of, something that has become problematic for my collection. Grix bowed so low his head nearly touched the ground. Your Highness, we are honored. Please show us this vessel. The prince gestured and his guards activated a holoprojector. The image that appeared made Marcus stop dead in his tracks. It was unlike anything he had ever seen before. The ship was massive, at least twice the size of a standard cruiser, but its design was completely alien. The hull was covered in strange patterns that seemed to shift and move in the holographic light. Sharp, angular extensions jutted out from the main body like claws or teeth. This is a wolf ship, Prince Kethavar explained, his voice carrying a hint of fear that he tried to hide, found drifting in the void sector. My father thought it would make an interesting addition to our museum, but... He paused as if choosing his words carefully. Let us say it has proven to be more trouble than it is worth. Marcus stared at the hologram. Even in the projection, something about the ship made his skin crawl. But there was also something else, a strange pull like the ship was somehow calling to him. What kind of trouble? He asked, the prince's silver eyes fixed on Marcus with surprise. Most humans wouldn't dare speak directly to Zolonian royalty. The ship appears to be alive in some sense. It responds to certain individuals. My technicians refuse to work on it anymore after several incidents. Grix rubbed his hands together eagerly. What is your asking price, Your Highness? I want it gone, immediately. The prince pulled out a credit chip and tossed it to Grix without ceremony. This should cover transportation and disposal. I care not what you do with it. Just ensure it never returns to Zolonian space. Marcus looked at the credit chip in Grix's trembling hands. Even from a distance, he could see it was worth more than the entire scrapyard. Wait, he said, stepping forward. I'll take it. Both Grix and the prince stared at him in shock. Human, Grix whispered urgently. That ship is clearly dangerous. We should just break it down for parts. But Marcus shook his head. Something deep inside him was telling him this was important. I'll buy it from you, Grix, fair price. He had been saving up for years, dreaming of owning his own ship someday. This might be his only chance. Prince Kethavar laughed, a sound like breaking glass. A human wants to own a wolf ship? This is rich. Very well, Primitive. It is yours. But when it devours you in the depths of space, remember that you chose this fate. The prince's guards quickly unloaded a small data pad containing the ship's location and basic technical specifications. The vessel is currently in Storage Bay 7 of the orbital station above us. It has been sealed and quarantined. The station master has been compensated for his discretion. As the royal transport prepared to leave, Prince Kethavar turned back to Marcus one final time. Tell me, human, why do you want something that has driven my best technicians to madness? Marcus hefted his toolbox and looked directly into those alien silver eyes. Because you're all afraid of it. And in my experience, the things that scare aliens the most are usually the things that make humans stronger. The prince's laugh echoed across the scrapyard as his ship lifted off, leaving Marcus standing alone with Grix and a datapad, containing the coordinates of the most dangerous ship in the galaxy. That night, Marcus lay in his small quarters above the repair shop, staring at the technical specifications. The ship's design was unlike anything in the standard databases. The power readings were impossible. The ship seemed to generate more energy than it consumed. The hull composition was listed as unknown material, and the weapons systems were marked as classification beyond current understanding. But what really caught his attention was a small note at the bottom of the file. Ship responds only to beings with genetic markers consistent with extinct Terran warrior bloodlines. Marcus touched the old dog tags around his neck. Inherited from his grandfather who had fought in Earth's last great war. Maybe the prince was right to be afraid. Maybe this ship was exactly what Marcus had been looking for his entire life. Tomorrow he would go to the orbital station and see his new ship. Whatever happened next, his boring life as a scrapyard mechanic was about to end forever. The orbital station looked like a metal city floating in the black void of space. Marcus had taken the first transport up from the planet's surface, his stomach churning from both the artificial gravity and nervous excitement. He clutched the datapad tightly as he made his way through the crowded corridors filled with aliens from dozens of different species. Storage Bay 7 was in the restricted section of the station, far from the busy commercial areas. Marcus had to show his identification and the prince's authorization 3 times before reaching the heavy blast doors that sealed the bay. The Zilonian station master, a nervous creature with too many eyes, practically shook as he handed over the access codes. "Human, I beg you to reconsider," the station master pleaded. "That thing in there. It has been silent for months, but sometimes we hear sounds. Scratching, humming. Things that no ship should make." His multiple eyes blinked in rapid succession. "My maintenance crews refuse to enter that bay anymore." Marcus pocketed the access codes. "Has anyone actually been hurt?" "Well, no," the station master admitted. "But the ship seems to watch us. Through the cameras, through the sensors. We feel its presence even through the sealed bulkheads." "Sounds like my kind of ship," Marcus said with a grin that he didn't entirely feel. The blast doors opened with a grinding mechanical sound that echoed through the empty corridor. Marcus stepped into the storage bay and immediately understood why everyone was afraid. The bay was massive, designed to hold entire fleets, but the wolf ship dominated the space like a predator in its lair. It was even more imposing in person than in the hologram. The ship stretched nearly 200 meters from nose to tail, its dark hull seeming to absorb the bay's harsh lighting. The strange patterns he had seen in the projection were actually carved into the hull itself, creating deep channels that formed complex geometric designs. As Marcus watched, he could have sworn the patterns were slowly shifting, like living tattoos on the ship's skin. The ship had no visible windows or external sensors, just smooth curves that flowed into sharp predatory angles. Wing-like extensions spread from the main hull like a sleeping dragon's wings, and the front of the ship came to a point that looked more like a beak or a fang than a traditional bow. Marcus approached slowly, his footsteps echoing in the silent bay. As he got closer, he noticed that the hull wasn't actually black. It was a deep dark blue that seemed to shift between colors depending on the angle of the light. And there was something else. The ship was warm. Even from 3 meters away, he could feel heat radiating from the hull. "Hello there, beautiful," he whispered, reaching out to touch the ship's surface. The moment his hand made contact with the hull, everything changed. Light exploded through the geometric patterns carved into the ship's skin, racing across the surface in waves of brilliant blue and silver. The entire bay filled with a deep, resonant hum that Marcus felt in his bones. Emergency alarms started blaring throughout the station as every sensor in the bay went crazy. But Marcus wasn't afraid. The moment he touched the ship, he felt something incredible. A presence, vast and ancient and patient, suddenly focusing its attention on him. It was like being examined by something immensely intelligent, as if the ship was looking directly into his soul. Images flashed through his mind. He saw fleets of ships like this one soaring through space in perfect formation. He saw massive battles against creatures of living darkness that tried to devour entire star systems. He saw warriors, humans, he realized with shock, standing beside these ships as partners, not just pilots. The vision ended as suddenly as it had begun, leaving Marcus gasping and leaning against the now quiet hull. The patterns had faded back to their normal state, but something had fundamentally changed. He could feel the ship's presence in the back of his mind, like a sleeping giant that had opened one eye to look at him. A section of the hull began to glow, outlining a doorway that hadn't been visible before. The metal flowed like liquid, creating an opening just large enough for Marcus to step through. Beyond the opening, soft blue light beckoned him forward. Marcus didn't hesitate. He stepped across the threshold and into the ship. The interior was nothing like any spacecraft he had ever seen. Instead of cramped corridors and utilitarian surfaces, the ship felt organic, alive. The walls curved and flowed like the inside of a seashell, covered in the same geometric patterns that decorated the exterior. The patterns glowed softly, providing all the light he needed to see. As he walked deeper into the ship, Marcus realized it was showing him the way. The patterns would brighten ahead of him, dimming behind as he passed. The ship was guiding him somewhere specific. He found himself in what could only be the bridge, though it looked nothing like the command centers of human or alien ships. The room was circular with a raised platform in the center. On the platform stood a single chair that seemed to have grown from the floor itself. It was sized perfectly for a human. As Marcus approached the chair, panels began to activate around the room. Displays of light appeared in the air, showing star charts, ship diagnostics, and streams of information in languages he couldn't read. But somehow he understood what he was seeing. The ship was alive and it was healthy, and it had been waiting for a very long time. He sat in the chair and immediately felt the ship's systems connecting with his nervous system. Not invasively, but gently, like shaking hands with an old friend. Information flowed into his mind. The ship's capabilities, its history, its purpose. The wolf ships had been built by humans, but not the humans of his time. These were the descendants of Earth's colonists from thousands of years ago. Humans who had evolved alongside living technology in the deep reaches of space. They had created these ships to fight an ancient enemy that threatened all life in the galaxy. The war had been won, but at a terrible cost. The humans who had built these ships were gone, scattered to the void or evolved beyond recognition. The ships themselves had gone dormant, waiting for the day when they would be needed again, or waiting for the right human to find them. Marcus felt the ship's engines stir to life, a deep thrumming that he felt in his chest. Through the ship's senses, he could perceive the station around them, the planet below, the vast network of space lanes stretching to every corner of the galaxy. He could feel other presences too, other ships scattered and sleeping, waiting to be awakened. The station master's voice crackled through the bay's communication system. Human. What have you done? The ship's power readings are off the charts. Please respond. Marcus smiled and opened a communication channel, though he wasn't entirely sure how he had done it. Everything's fine down here. Just getting acquainted with my new ship. You cannot take that vessel into open space. It is not registered with any galactic authority. It has no flight clearance. Marcus felt the ship's amusement at the bureaucratic concerns of lesser beings. I think you'll find, he said, his voice carrying new confidence, that this ship doesn't need anyone's permission to fly. The wolf ship's weapons systems came online with a sound like thunder, and every sensor on the station registered power levels that shouldn't have been possible. Through the ship's awareness, Marcus could feel the terror of every alien on the station as they realized what they were dealing with. It wasn't a derelict anymore. It was a predator, awakened and ready to hunt. The wolf ship moved through space like poetry in motion. Marcus had never experienced anything like it. Every other ship he had ever been on felt like a metal box being pushed through the void by brute force. This ship flowed through space like it belonged there, like it was swimming through an ocean instead of flying through vacuum. From his position in the pilot's chair, Marcus could feel everything. The ship's senses were his senses now. He could perceive the gravitational pull of distant stars, the electromagnetic fields of nearby planets, the heat signatures of other ships thousands of kilometers away. It was overwhelming and exhilarating at the same time. 3 hours had passed since they left the orbital station. The station master had tried to contact the Galactic Authority, but Marcus had jammed their communications without even thinking about it. The ship's defensive systems had activated automatically, protecting both itself and its new pilot from interference. Now they were in open space, far from any shipping lanes or patrol routes. Marcus was learning to use the ship's incredible capabilities, and the ship was learning about him in return. It was like the most intense flight training of his life. except his instructor was a sentient spacecraft with technology beyond anything the current galaxy possessed. The navigation display showed their current position relative to known space. They were in the neutral zone, an area of space that no major power claimed because it was supposedly empty and worthless. But through the ship's enhanced sensors, Marcus could see that it wasn't empty at all. There were structures out there, hidden from normal detection, ancient ruins, derelict ships, and things that defied easy classification. A soft chime drew his attention to the tactical display. 3 ships were approaching from the direction of the nearest trade route. The wolf ship's sensors identified them immediately, pirates flying modified assault fighters. They were fast, armed, and clearly looking for trouble. Marcus felt the ship's predatory satisfaction as it detected the incoming threats. The wolf ship had been built for war, and it had been sleeping for far too long. He could sense its eagerness to test its claws against these minor annoyances. The lead pirate ship opened communications, broadcasting on standard frequencies. "Unknown vessel, you are in violation of our territorial claims. Prepare to be boarded or face destruction." Marcus laughed. These idiots had no idea what they were dealing with. "This should be educational," he muttered, allowing the ship's weapon systems to fully activate. The 3 pirate ships approached in standard attack formation, confident in their numbers and firepower. They were flying Kestrel-class fighters, fast and maneuverable, with enough firepower to take down most civilian vessels. Against a typical freighter or passenger ship, they would have been deadly. Against a wolf ship, they were insects. The lead fighter opened fire first, sending streams of plasma bolts toward the wolf ship's hull. Marcus watched through the ship's senses as the energy weapons struck their target and simply vanished, absorbed harmlessly into the geometric patterns that covered the hull. The ship didn't even bother to evade. "What the hell?" came the panicked voice of the pirate leader. "Direct hits, no damage." "That's impossible." The wolf ship's response was swift and decisive. Weapon ports opened along the hull like predatory eyes, revealing arrays of energy projectors that hummed with barely contained power. Marcus didn't consciously fire the weapons. The ship simply acted, responding to his desire to neutralize the threat. Beams of brilliant blue light lanced out from the wolf ship, not at the pirate fighters, but around them. The energy formed a cage of light that trapped all 3 ships in a matrix of crackling force. The pirates' engines died as their power systems were overwhelmed by electromagnetic interference. "Surrender," Marcus broadcast, his voice carrying the full authority of the ancient warship. "Or be destroyed." The pirate leader's voice came back shaky and afraid. "What are you?" "Our sensors are going crazy. That power signature?" "It's not possible." Marcus could feel the ship's amusement at the primitive alien's confusion. "I'm just a human with a really good ship," he said. "Now you have 10 seconds to explain why you thought it was a good idea to attack me." We didn't know. This sector is supposed to be empty. We've been using it as a base for months." Through the ship's enhanced sensors, Marcus could detect their base, a hollowed-out asteroid about 50 kilometers away. It was crude but functional, home to about 30 pirates and their families, desperate people living on the edges of civilization, surviving by preying on merchant ships. The wolf ship fed him tactical assessments of the base's defenses, possible attack vectors, and the most efficient ways to destroy it completely. But Marcus had a different idea. "Here's what's going to happen," he broadcast to all 3 ships. "You're going to pack up your base and find somewhere else to play pirate. This sector is under new management." "Under whose authority?" the pirate leader demanded, trying to sound defiant despite his obvious fear. Marcus smiled and allowed the wolf ship to project its full power signature. Every sensor within 1,000 kilometers lit up as the ship revealed just a fraction of its true capabilities. The energy readings were so far beyond normal parameters that most equipment couldn't even process them properly. "Mine," Marcus said simply. The silence that followed was broken only by the static of overwhelmed communication systems. Finally, the pirate leader's voice came back, much quieter than before. "Understood, we'll be gone within the day. Smart choice." Marcus felt the ship release the energy cage, allowing the 3 fighters to drift free. Their systems came back online slowly, damaged but functional. And spread the word. This sector is protected now. Anyone looking for easy prey should find somewhere else to hunt. As the pirates retreated toward their asteroid base, Marcus leaned back in the pilot's chair and tried to process what had just happened. He had just claimed an entire sector of space as his own territory, backed up by a ship that could apparently defeat entire fleets without breaking a sweat. The wolf ship's sensors detected movement from deeper in the sector. More derelicts, more ruins, and something else. Signals faint but definitely artificial. Other ships dormant like this one had been, waiting for someone to wake them up. Through their connection, Marcus felt the ship's excitement. It had been alone for so long, the last of its kind in this part of the galaxy, but now it could sense its siblings stirring, responding to the activation of their brother ship. "How many of you are out there?" Marcus asked aloud. The ship showed him a star map, highlighting dozens of locations across the galaxy. Each point of light represented another wolf ship, sleeping and waiting. Some were in deep space, others hidden in asteroid fields or orbiting dead worlds. A few were even in civilized systems, mistaken for derelicts or artifacts. "We're going to need a crew," Marcus realized. The ship could operate with just him, but its full potential would require more people, humans specifically. The ship's technology was designed to work with human neural patterns, human instincts, human ways of thinking. The navigation system highlighted a course toward the nearest inhabited world, a frontier colony called Haven's Rest, about 2 days away at their current speed. It was a rough place home to miners, traders, and people running from their pasts, the kind of place where a human with a mysterious ship might find others willing to take a chance on something impossible. As the wolf ship oriented itself toward their destination, Marcus felt a presence touch his mind. Not the ship this time, but something else, distant and familiar. Another human, somewhere in the vast galaxy, had just awakened a wolf ship of their own. The pack was stirring. After millennia of sleep, the wolf ships were returning to the hunt, and Marcus was no longer alone. Haven's Rest looked like exactly what it was, a desperate attempt to carve civilization out of hostile space. The planet was mostly rock and ice, but its asteroid belt was rich with rare metals that made the miserable living conditions almost worthwhile. The spaceport was a collection of pressurized domes connected by covered walkways, constantly fighting against the thin atmosphere and deadly radiation from the system's unstable star. Marcus brought the wolf ship down at the edge of the port's landing field, well away from the other vessels. Even powered down and dormant, the ship drew stares from anyone who got close enough to see it. Nothing in the galaxy looked like a wolf ship, and the geometric patterns carved into its hull seemed to shift and move in the planet's strange light. The Port Authority had tried to charge him standard docking fees until they got a look at his ship's power readings. Then they had quickly decided that maybe the mysterious human could dock for free, as long as he promised not to cause any trouble. Marcus walked through the main settlement dome, his breath visible in the cold air despite the life support systems working at full capacity. Haven's Rest attracted a certain type of person: miners, salvagers, traders, and people who had reasons to avoid the more civilized parts of the galaxy. It was exactly the kind of place where he might find humans willing to crew a ship that most of the galaxy would consider either impossible or insane. The broken thruster cantina was the heart of Haven's Rest's social life. It was crowded, noisy, and filled with smoke from a dozen different species' recreational substances. Marcus made his way to the bar, noting the mix of humans and aliens drinking together in the dim light. The bartender was human, a middle-aged woman with graying hair and scars on her hands that spoke of a life spent working with machinery. "You're the one with the strange ship," she said as Marcus sat down. It wasn't a question. "News travels fast around here," Marcus replied, ordering a local beer that tasted like recycled coolant. Not much excitement on Haven's Rest. When something new shows up, especially something that makes the port sensors go crazy, people notice. She leaned closer, lowering her voice. "Name's Sarah Chen. I used to be a navigation officer in the colonial fleet before I ended up here. That ship of yours, I've never seen readings like that. What is it?" Before Marcus could answer, a commotion erupted from the corner of the cantina. A group of Zolonian traders were harassing a young human woman, apparently upset about some business deal gone wrong. The woman was holding her ground, but she was outnumbered, and the aliens were getting aggressive. Marcus felt the wolf ship's awareness touch his mind from across the landing field. The ship didn't like seeing humans threatened, and neither did he. He stood up, but before he could move, another human beat him to it. The man was tall and lean, with the kind of controlled movements that spoke of military training. He approached the group of Zolonians with casual confidence, placing himself between them and the woman. "Gentlemen," he said in a voice that carried quiet authority, "I think there's been a misunderstanding here." The lead Zolonian turned his silver eyes on the newcomer with contempt. "This does not concern you, human. The female owes us significant credits for cargo that was damaged in transit." "That cargo was damaged because you didn't tell me it was unstable biomatter," the woman shot back. "My ship nearly blew up trying to transport your illegal specimens." The tall man smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Sounds like you gentlemen are the ones who owe compensation for endangering a pilot and her vessel with false cargo manifests." Marcus could see where this was heading. The Zolonians were armed, and they clearly didn't have much respect for human life. But something about the man's confidence made him curious. He walked over to join the confrontation, Sarah Chen following behind him. "Problem here?" Marcus asked, stepping up beside the tall stranger. The Zolonian leader looked between the two humans with growing irritation. "More primitives. This grows tiresome." That's when Marcus felt it. A presence similar to what he experienced with the wolf ship, but different. Weaker, more distant. He looked at the tall man with new understanding. "You've got a ship too," Marcus said quietly. "One of the old ones." The man's eyes widened slightly. "How did you?" "Yes. Found her drifting in the void sector about a month ago. Nobody else could get her to respond. But when I touched the hull..." He trailed off, studying Marcus with new interest. "You're the one who activated the big ship in this system." I felt it wake up. The Zolonians were growing impatient with the human conversation. Their leader drew a plasma pistol, causing the cantina to suddenly grow quiet as other patrons moved away from the confrontation. "Enough," the alien snapped. "The female will pay what she owes, or we will take compensation from her flesh." The tall man sighed. "Wrong answer." He moved faster than Marcus would have thought possible, disarming the Zolonian and pinning him against the wall before the alien could even aim his weapon. The other Zolonians started to draw their own guns but found themselves facing a dozen human patrons who had suddenly produced weapons of their own. "Funny thing about Haven's Rest," Sarah Chen said conversationally. "Most of the humans here are refugees from the Outer Rim conflicts. They don't much like aliens who threaten their neighbors." The Zolonian leader looked around at the hostile faces surrounding him and made the wise decision to back down. "This is not over," he hissed, as his group retreated toward the cantina's exit. "Yes, it is," the tall man replied. "And if I see you bothering humans on Haven's Rest again, we're going to have a much more serious conversation." As the Zolonians left, the cantina gradually returned to its normal noise level. The woman they had been threatening approached Marcus and his new ally. "Thanks for the backup," she said. "I'm Elena Vasquez, cargo hauler and occasional salvage runner. And you're the mysterious humans with the impossible ships." The tall man extended his hand to Marcus. "Jake Morrison, former colonial marine. My ship's about half the size of yours, but she's definitely from the same builders. Found her in a debris field where she'd been waiting for God knows how long." Marcus shook his hand, feeling the familiar spark of connection that seemed to link humans who had bonded with the ancient ships. "Marcus Webb, and I think we need to talk. All of us." Sarah Chen refilled their drinks without being asked. "Mind if I listen in? Because if you're talking about what I think you're talking about, I might be interested in signing up." Over the next few hours, Marcus told them about the wolf ship, about the visions he had experienced, and about the growing awareness that other ships were awakening across the galaxy. Jake shared his own story of finding his ship, smaller than Marcus's but clearly built by the same unknown humans from the deep past. Elena proved to be a former colonial fleet pilot herself, grounded after an incident that had left her ship destroyed and her career in ruins. Sarah had navigation experience that went far beyond what most civilian pilots possessed. Both women were skilled, experienced, and looking for something better than eking out a living on the frontier. "So what you're saying," Sarah said, as Marcus finished his story, is that these ships were built by humans from thousands of years ago. They're designed to bond with human crews, and they're all waking up at the same time. That's about the size of it, Marcus confirmed. Question is, what do we do about it? Jake leaned back in his chair. I've been getting flashes of something, images, feelings. Like the ship is trying to show me things. There's something out there, something that the original builders were fighting against. Marcus nodded. My ship showed me the same thing, some kind of enemy that threatened all life in the galaxy. The war was won, but the enemy might not be completely gone, Elena finished. And the ships are waking up because they're needed again. The four humans sat in silence for a moment, contemplating the implications. Then Sarah Chen smiled, the expression transforming her scarred face. Well, she said, beats mining asteroids for a living. When do we leave? Marcus felt the wolf ship's satisfaction through their connection. It had been alone for so long, the last guardian in a sleeping fleet. But now it had allies again. Other ships, other humans, the beginning of a new pack. The hunt was about to begin. The journey to the coordinates Jake's ship had provided took them 3 days through hyperspace. Marcus had never experienced faster-than-light travel like this before. Instead of the violent wrenching sensation of jumping between star systems, the wolf ship seemed to slip between dimensions like a knife through silk. Space folded around them in impossible ways, and they emerged at their destination without even a moment of disorientation. The system they arrived in was dead. 5 planets orbited a dying red giant star, their surfaces blasted and lifeless. But according to Jake's ship, this was where they would find answers about the ancient war and the enemy that had required such powerful weapons to defeat. Both ships moved through the system cautiously, their enhanced sensors probing for any sign of the ruins Jake had seen in his visions. It was Elena who spotted them first. Massive structures on the 4th planet, partially buried under millions of years of dust and debris. Those aren't natural formations, she said, studying the sensor readings from her position at the tactical station aboard Marcus's ship. Sarah Chen was handling navigation while Jake maintained formation in his smaller vessel, which they had learned was called a Stalker-class reconnaissance ship. The wolf ship's sensors penetrated deep into the planetary surface, revealing the true scope of what lay hidden there, an entire city, maybe an entire civilization preserved under layers of geological time. But there were other readings too. Energy signatures that didn't match any known technology, and something else that made the ship's systems react with instinctive caution. I'm picking up some kind of containment facility, Marcus reported. His consciousness merged with the ship's sensors. Deep underground, heavily shielded, and still active after all this time. Jake's voice crackled over the communication link between the two ships. My ship is reacting to something down there. She's afraid? Can ships feel afraid? Marcus knew exactly what he meant. The wolf ship was projecting feelings of wariness and disgust, like a predator that had caught the scent of something poisonous. Whatever was in that containment facility, the ancient shipbuilders had considered it dangerous enough to bury on a dead world in the middle of nowhere. They landed their ships near the largest exposed structure, which turned out to be some kind of monitoring station built into the side of a mountain. The architecture was definitely human in origin, but unlike anything from current galactic civilization. The lines were too clean, the materials too advanced, and everything was built on a massive scale that spoke of a civilization with resources beyond anything Marcus could imagine. The station's airlock recognized their approach and opened automatically, as if it had been waiting for them. Inside, the corridors were filled with breathable atmosphere that had somehow remained stable for millennia. Emergency lighting activated as they passed, creating a path deeper into the complex. This place gives me the creeps, Elena muttered, checking her sidearm for the 3rd time. It's like walking through a tomb. They found the control center after 20 minutes of walking through identical corridors. It was a circular chamber dominated by a massive holographic display that activated the moment they entered. The image that appeared made them all stop dead in their tracks. It was a star map, but not of any galaxy they recognized. Thousands of star systems were marked with different colored indicators, green for safe, yellow for contested, and red for lost. As they watched, the display began to move, showing the progression of some vast conflict across space and time. This is a historical record, Sarah breathed. studying the tactical displays that surrounded the main projection, a record of the war. The green zones shrank steadily as red spread across the map like a virus, entire sectors falling to something that consumed star systems and left nothing but empty space behind. But then the tide began to turn. New symbols appeared, ships that looked exactly like the ones they were flying now, cutting through the red zones and pushing back the advancing enemy. A voice filled the chamber, speaking in ancient standard that was barely recognizable. Final log entry, Research Station Omega-7. The containment protocol has been successfully implemented. The devourers are dormant, sealed within quantum isolation chambers that should hold for at least 10,000 years. The hologram shifted, showing a new image, creatures of living shadow and hunger, beings that existed partially outside normal space-time. The record showed them consuming entire worlds, not just destroying them but somehow erasing them from reality itself. The Wolf Fleet has succeeded in driving the main Devourer force back into the void between galaxies, the voice continued. However, several specimens have been captured for study. We must understand how they consume reality itself if we are to prevent their return. Marcus felt the Wolf ship's presence in his mind, sharing its own memories of that ancient war. He saw fleets of ships like his own engaging enemies that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, weapons that could tear holes in space-time itself, and battles that raged across entire galactic clusters. The ships that carried humanity to victory have been programmed with dormancy protocols. The recorded voice went on. They will sleep until such time as their services are needed again. If this recording is being heard, it means the containment has been compromised and the devourers are stirring once more. The display shifted again, showing current galactic conditions. Several sectors were marked with warning indicators, areas where space itself seemed to be becoming unstable, where ships vanished without trace and worlds reported strange phenomena. "Oh God," Elena whispered. "It's happening again, isn't it? That's why the ships are waking up." Jake's voice came over their comm units from his position near the facility's secondary systems. "Guys, you need to see this. I found the containment cells." They followed his directions deeper into the station, through corridors that became increasingly heavy with shielding and security systems. The containment level was a maze of energy barriers and isolation chambers, most of them empty. But 3 of the cells still showed active readings. Through the transparent aluminum viewing ports, they could see into the isolation chambers. At first, they appeared to be empty, just blank white spaces filled with swirling energy. But as Marcus looked closer, he began to see shapes moving within the containment fields, dark forms that seemed to bend light around them, creatures that hurt to look at directly. "The containment is failing," Sarah said, studying the status displays. "Look at these readings. The quantum isolation fields are destabilizing. They might have another century left, maybe less." Marcus felt the Wolf ship reaching out through the station's ancient systems, accessing databases that had been sealed for millennia. Information flowed into his consciousness. Technical specifications for weapons capable of destroying reality-consuming entities, tactical analyses of devourer behavior patterns, and worst of all, projections of what would happen if even one of these creatures escaped containment. The answer was simple and terrifying. It would consume the galaxy, star by star, planet by planet, until nothing remained but empty void. "We need to warn everyone," Elena said. "The Galactic Council, the Colonial Fleet, everyone who can field a ship or mount a defense." Jake shook his head grimly. "Warn them about what?" "That reality-eating monsters from outside the universe are about to break free from a prison that's been hidden for 10,000 years. They'll think we're insane." "Then we don't warn them," Marcus said, feeling the ancient ship's purpose flowing through his mind like a river of steel. "We prepare. The ships that are waking up, the humans who can bond with them. We're the Wolf Fleet now, and we have work to do." The containment facility's systems began broadcasting a priority signal, transmitted on frequencies that only the ancient ships could receive. Across the galaxy, dormant Wolf ships stirred in their hiding places, responding to the call. Their time of sleep was ending. The hunt was about to begin again, and this time Marcus and his crew would be leading the pack. 6 months after discovering the containment facility, the new Wolf Fleet had grown from 2 ships to 47. The ancient vessels had awakened across the galaxy, each one finding a human capable of bonding with its living technology. They came from every corner of human space, Former military pilots, cargo haulers, miners, even a few criminals running from their past. What they all shared was something in their genetic code that resonated with the ship's systems. A legacy from humanity's ancient defenders. Marcus stood on the bridge of his wolf ship, which had finally told him its name, Fenrir. The ship's consciousness had become clearer over the months, less like an alien presence and more like a trusted partner. Through the fleet's quantum communication network, he could sense all the other ships and their crews, a pack mind that spanned light years. The fleet had gathered in the neutral zone that Marcus had claimed months earlier. What had once been empty space was now a bustling staging area. The humans had built a space station using technology salvaged from ancient ruins and enhanced with knowledge provided by the wolf ships. They called it Haven, and it served as their base of operations for the coming war. Status report, Marcus called out to his bridge crew. Sarah Chen, now his official second-in-command, consulted the tactical displays that had become as familiar as breathing. All 47 ships are operational and ready for combat, she reported. Elena's engineering teams have finished upgrading the last of the newly awakened ships. Jake's scout squadrons have confirmed Devourer activity in 17 different systems. That was the nightmare that kept Marcus awake at night. The containment wasn't failing gradually. It had already failed. 3 weeks ago, one of the imprisoned Devourers had finally broken free of its quantum cage. By the time the monitoring systems registered the breach, it had already consumed a small research station and was heading toward populated space. The first attack had come without warning. The Devourer had emerged in the Kepler system, home to 3 million human colonists. It hadn't destroyed the planets. Destruction would have been a mercy. Instead, it had begun consuming reality itself, unmaking matter and energy on a fundamental level. Entire continents simply ceased to exist, leaving behind holes in space-time that hurt to look at. The colonial fleet had responded with everything they had. Battleships, carriers, and cruisers had poured plasma fire and nuclear weapons into the creature. Nothing had even slowed it down. The Devourer existed partially outside normal physics, immune to conventional weapons and growing stronger. With every planet it consumed, that's when the Wolf Fleet had revealed itself to the galaxy. Marcus remembered the look on Admiral Harrison's face when 47 impossible ships had appeared in the Kepler system without warning. The colonial fleet's sensors couldn't even properly classify the Wolf ships, their power. Signatures were so far beyond normal parameters that most instruments simply gave error readings. The battle had lasted 18 minutes. The Devourers were ancient and powerful, but the Wolf ships had been built specifically to fight them. Weapons that fired bolts of compressed space-time, shields that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, and tactics developed over millennia of warfare against reality-consuming entities. The Devourer died, its essence scattered across 17 different dimensional layers to prevent it from reforming, but its death scream had been heard by its imprisoned siblings, and the other containment facilities were failing faster now. Incoming transmission from Admiral Harrison, Elena announced from the communications station. She had proven to have a natural talent for managing the complex quantum entanglement networks that allowed the fleet to coordinate across galactic distances. The Admiral's face appeared on the main display, looking haggard and desperate. In the months since first contact with the Wolf Fleet, he had become humanity's unofficial liaison to Marcus and his growing navy of impossible ships. "Marcus," he said without preamble, "we've got another breach. The containment facility in the Rigel system just went dark. Long-range sensors are detecting reality distortions spreading outward from the fourth planet." Marcus felt Fenrir's immediate response. The ship's weapon systems came online automatically, and through the fleet network, he sensed the other Wolf ships preparing for battle. The pack had scented prey. "How long until it reaches inhabited space?" Marcus asked. 18 hours, maybe less. The Rigel colonies have started evacuating, but there are 40 million people in that system. They can't all get out in time. Sarah was already plotting jump coordinates, her fingers flying over displays that responded to thought as much as touch. "We can have the full fleet there in 6 hours, she reported. But Marcus, this is the second facility breach in 3 weeks. At this rate, she didn't need to finish. Marcus could feel the same calculations running through Fenrir's consciousness. There were dozens of containment facilities scattered across the galaxy, each one holding multiple Devourers. If they kept breaking free at this rate, even the Wolf fleet wouldn't be able to stop them all. "Admiral," Marcus said, "we're going to need more ships, more crews. How many humans in the colonial fleet have the genetic markers we're looking for?" Admiral Harrison consulted something off-screen. "According to the tests your people provided, maybe 1 in 10,000. We're talking about a few thousand people scattered across hundreds of worlds." "Then start gathering them," Marcus ordered. "We've located 17 more dormant wolf ships in the past month. The ancient builders left us everything we need to fight this war, but only if we can find the people capable of using it." Jake's voice crackled over the comm from his position aboard Shadow Strike, his Stalker-class ship. "Marcus, I'm picking up something else. The quantum resonance from the breach. It's not random. The Devourers are communicating with each other somehow, coordinating their escape attempts. That was even worse news. If the imprisoned entities were working together, they could potentially break free all at once, overwhelming even the reformed Wolf fleet." Marcus felt Fenrir's grim satisfaction at the challenge. The ship had been built for impossible odds. "Then we end this now," Marcus decided. "Sarah, plot a course for the Rigel system. Signal the fleet, all ships combat formation. Jake, I want your scouts to start mapping every containment facility in the galaxy. If they want to break free, let's give them the fight they're looking for." As the 47 ships of the Wolf fleet began their quantum jumps toward the Rigel system, Marcus felt something he hadn't experienced since this all began: hope. Not because the odds were good, but because for the first time since humanity had spread to the stars, they weren't helpless prey waiting to be devoured. They were the hunters now, and somewhere in the vast darkness between galaxies, something ancient and hungry was about to learn why the Wolf ships had been humanity's greatest achievement. The pack was running again, and this time, they wouldn't stop until every last devourer had been sent screaming back into the void where it belonged. Through the quantum network, Marcus felt the collective consciousness of the fleet, dozens of humans linked with their impossible ships, ready to fight a war that most of the galaxy didn't even know was happening. They were no longer just mechanics and pilots and refugees. They were the inheritors of humanity's greatest legacy, the guardians of reality itself. The Wolf fleet was complete, and the final hunt was about to begin.